The Brian Crabtree Show on Demand is brought to you by Bright Path Mortgage, Brilliant Mortgage Solutions, brightpath.com. The Brian Crabtree Show, live in Atlanta, afternoon starting at 4 on Biz 1190, biz1190.com, and the Biz 1190 mobile app.
Please welcome
The Brian Crabtree Show.
The Brian Crabtree Show.
Brian Crabtree Show.
All right, I told you we want to get into Hurricane Irma because it may, in fact, greatly impact the Atlanta metro area. I don't know, a week from now or whatever, but I'm not a meteorologist, nor would I ever claim to be. 175-mile-an-hour winds now as it heads for the east coast of America. The question on everyone's mind now, will it be hitting somewhere like southeast Florida, Miami, Coral Gables, that area? Will it go through the Florida Straits? I mean, what's going to happen? It's strengthened to a Category 5 storm to date. It's on its way through Puerto Rico, the U.S. Virgin Islands, the Bahamas, and Cuba. Still a big impact on American territories. Puerto Rico, the U.S. Virgin Islands in ground zero, right in the bullseye at this point. Still unclear whether the storm will turn right or left or what will happen. Florida, Georgia, the Carolinas, it could be anywhere. To unpack this and to let us know what we may face in Atlanta as fallout from the storm, our chief meteorologist for Biz 1190 and AM 920, The Answer, Aaron Williams.
Oh, thanks. Thanks for having me here, Brian.
Yeah, so I wanted to get into this hurricane because, my goodness, we had Hurricane Harvey, 450,000 people displaced from their homes, and now it looks like we have an even stronger hurricane coming into perhaps the mainland of Florida. Best case scenario for Florida, it goes through the Florida Straits. Is that your read as a meteorologist at this point as to where the storm is headed?
Yeah, right now, as opposed to the newest models that we have, looks like it is going to start to roll on through basically the Florida Straits and possibly up into the Panhandle of Florida, which means that folks here in Atlanta need to be aware of that. So we're watching this pretty closely. Of course, it won't cause devastation because by the time it gets to our neck of the woods, it will be dying down, but it will still cause some serious problems if it does start to roll through our area.
So let's talk about first just the storms, and then I want to get to the part about what we may see here in Atlanta if this current path that seems to be the best reliable model thus far actually happens, puts it in our path. But we're seeing two major storms. We haven't seen this in a while that are directly threatening the coast of the United States. We had, of course, Hurricane Sandy a few years ago, Hurricane Katrina. Those were the big ones that rival this sort of storm. Is there anything about the whole adage of global warming and climate change and the warming waters of the ocean that really is literally the reason for this, or is this just sort of the cycle of weather? How do you see this?
It's a little bit of both. Weather, of course, is cyclical. You know, we go through cycles of very active hurricane seasons and cycles where it's pretty down. And we've been in a very long pattern of down hurricane activity or tropical storm activity for several years. Looks like it is starting to be on the increase this year. Could be an anomaly, could be a trend. I'm not sure. But it's a couple of reasons. One is luck of the draw. You know, when we've seen hurricanes and tropical storms over the past few years, all of them have basically missed the United States. So we've been lucky in that regard. This one, though, these past two, the one that we're, of course, looking at, Irma now, and then, of course, Harvey out of Texas, again, they're very strong hurricanes, and it is because the warm Gulf of Mexico waters start to really fuel that fire, again, for Harvey, and then it basically stood around and basically got stronger and stronger and stronger with a lot more water. Didn't have a lot of steering currents to Hurricane Harvey. So once it hit inland, it basically stayed there, and it gave us all that problem. If the typical hurricane track would have gone where it would basically gone inland, died down, and just kind of shot off into the northeast, we wouldn't have nearly the same problems as we do in Houston. But just this one decided to stick around and stay.
We're talking with our meteorologist, Aaron Williams, about Hurricane Irma, Category 5 storm, 175-mile-an-hour winds as of this broadcast, headed toward Florida, may go through the Florida Straits. If it does, it picks up warm water, perhaps weakens a little bit through the Straits, then gets even stronger potentially in the Gulf with that warm water this time of the year, then shoots up into the Panhandle of Florida, putting it squarely in track to land in Atlanta. Now, at that point, do you think it would be a tropical depression, a tropical storm? What might we see in Atlanta? And let me give you the context of this question. Hurricane Hugo came in 1989 through Charleston, South Carolina, came up through Georgia and into Tennessee. And between Atlanta and Tennessee at that time, there were massive tornadoes, there was strong winds, there was heavy rain, and it was almost a tropical storm at that point in northern Georgia and middle Tennessee. What might we see with this based on what you know so far?
All of the above. It depends on how strong Irma is going to be by the time it makes landfall. Because, of course, once hurricanes hit landfall, they start to die down because they lose their fuel, basically. So if it's a Category 2, 3 hurricane, it could go down to a tropical depression by the time it comes up to northern Georgia. But if it is a Category 4 or 5, it may still be a tropical storm by the time it hits us as well. Looking at, again, the newest models for Hurricane Irma right now, and the vast majority of them have them coming right up the west coast of Florida into the Panhandle, right around the Big Bend area, and pushing up into northern Georgia. So it is something we're certainly going to be worried about and taking a close look out for the next few days or so.
And that would probably put us about a week away, right, before that would actually happen?
Yeah, we're looking at maybe Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and that type of time frame. It depends on how fast it goes, but probably say sometime early next week.
Now, all the models that you're looking at, is there potential at this point still pretty seriously that it does actually turn a little bit to the north? Do the steering conditions exist that it possibly could shift enough to steer it into Miami, or at least or even run it up the coast of Florida? We've seen that happen once or twice in our lifetime, where just sort of a storm like this just runs up the coast with steering, and then if it did that, it might in fact run into South Carolina or North Carolina. What are the chances in the models of something like that?
Well, like I said, I mean, the models do change every single time. I'm looking right now at our latest one that came out early this morning. This one is basically the vast majority of the models are taking it along the west coast of Florida, all the way up into the Big Bend area in North Georgia, like I said before. But there are a few, there's about 6 or 7 models that want to go ahead and steer that up the coast of Florida into the Carolinas. So this far out, again, I hate to say it like this, it's still anyone's guess right now. They have that cone of uncertainty, and we're still in that cone of uncertainty. We're going to have to really watch and wait to see what happens when it goes over the island of Hispaniola, over Puerto Rico, and especially over Cuba over the next couple of days.
A couple of more questions. Do you see any models that steer it off the coast and turn it around off of Florida, not making landfall in the continental United States?
Yeah, right now there's a couple of those. So that is certainly a possibility, but if you're playing the odds, you're probably looking at it hitting the United States on the west coast of Florida sometime soon.
Looks like another major storm. One final question here, and this is a question more so out of ignorance. Pardon the ignorance, but Aaron, how does the steering conditions, what causes the steering of the storms? I know it's high and low pressure and such as that, but we can predict pretty much when it's going to rain in inland meteorology and a lot of times snow, but it seems that still there's a big struggle with predicting exactly how these storms are going to be steered. What keeps changing these models?
Sure. It's in the upper levels of the atmosphere, so the wind currents in the upper levels of the atmosphere will change. And again, we're all dealing with model statistics and probability. And the further out that you are, the more uncertain it's going to be. So the closer you get to the time frame, the more things kind of come together and you can tell what's going on. But again, predicting the weather 4, 5, 6 days out is a very difficult science, and especially when you're dealing with upper level wind currents, a lot of moving things like a hurricane track is going to be. We have to rely on computer models to do the best that we can, and those computer models don't necessarily agree with each other, and then we kind of have to take our best guess and just really monitor closely. It really kind of comes down to a gut forecast.
That's
sometimes.
what I was going to ask you. It seems like a gut check based on fairly deep experience.
Yeah.
Aaron Williams, our meteorologist on Biz 1190, AM 920, The Answer. Always great to have you in these significant moments. We'll have you back.
Sure. Thank you.
The Brian Crabtree Show on Demand is brought to you by Bright Path Mortgage, Brilliant Mortgage Solutions, BrightPath.com. The Brian Crabtree Show, live in Atlanta, afternoon starting at 4 on Biz 1190, Biz1190.com, and the Biz 1190 mobile app.